Sanders slide, I think caught a lot of the media off guard, but I think there were a lot of signals heading into this that he was going to slide. And I'm curious as to what, if either of you guys have strong opinions about what to make of this. Because I think people seem to be like agitated about it for reasons that, based on my understanding of it, feel a little out of place.
I thought it was pretty fascinating. And I will admit, and I think I've said this on here before, that I fully did the bandwagon Colorado thing. Like I'm a full subscriber season, I don't mean it literally, but season ticket holder to Coach Prime, like, and to all things Deion. Like I just have been for a really long time. So I watched every episode of, the documentary that's basically a TV ad for him from when he was at Jackson State. And then I watched the season or two or whatever it was in Colorado as well. And so I've been very invested in it. And because I only watched I only knew Shedeur through the documentary, where understandably it portrays him in the best possible light. I did not see coming any of the, criticism about sort of the way he carried himself in the interviews, or the concerns about whether he could be a good team player and put the organization before himself. But, if there are elements of that, obviously they were not highlighted in the doc that it seems that, Deion Sanders has a fair amount of creative control over. So I was surprised by that. What I didn't know, look, I'm not an expert on analyzing quarterbacks, but the idea that he wasn't that good, like, that's not what I saw. I watched a fair amount of Colorado games. He's pretty dang skilled as a quarterback. I mean, I saw him make some great passes, some very difficult passes. He seems to be very mobile. It seems like some of this criticism is around maturity and around it feels to me that even in the blind quotes that come from NFL person or from like team personnel, where they're talking about him having not having good interviews and that kind of thing, even in the blind quotes, they don't address what I think is a major factor, which is, I imagine a decent amount of the organizations are weighing, the concerns about his skills on the field and weighing them against concerns about his dad being an outsized influence on the team, and probably worried about distraction, like we just talked about in the previous segment.
I think the thing that affected my impression the most was Brian Daboll's commentary, which I think it was sourced that he had said this, but Daboll hasn't come out denying this account.
Is he the Giants GM?
He's the Giants head coach.
Yeah, head coach.
And so, and I've seen, because they did Hard Knocks with the Giants last year.
That's how we all know him. Yeah.
He comes in and he's like, the quarterbacks come in, and he's a former offensive coordinator. He's our offensive coordinator. He was Saban's offensive coordinator. He was also on the Patriots. And he's got that Belichickian Saban type of demeanor where he's like, you come in, he's like, he starts quizzing you on whatever he asked you to be prepared for, and or like your experience. Tell me a play. Let's I think he says diagram of play, and then he starts asking you questions about it, etc. And by his account, according to reporting, Sanders was not prepared, and then got really defensive when Daboll pushed back on his lack of preparedness. And the way the reporting is going is that that's what a lot of meetings were like for Sanders. And I think when you combine that with the fact that he wasn't testing off the charts, regardless of what you saw in the games, right? Like that his tangible measurables weren't elite, that a lot of people were worried that this guy, if he were to go through the natural progression, which Patrick Mahomes was a backup, Josh Allen was a backup, and they weren't backups for long, but you have to earn your stripes on most NFL teams, that this guy was not going to be willing to be a team player. He wasn't going to, he came in with a certain attitude that he was entitled to certain things. And that's at least what the reporting was. And it's hard not to believe that there wasn't actual fire where there was smoke, because why else would every team pass on him for multiple rounds? It's like, I know people like to believe in conspiracies in the NFL, but people draft players that they think are good. Look, there were multiple players drafted who had major criminal problems before he got drafted. So I think there was probably something real here in these meetings that people saw.
Well, let's real quick look at this Colin Cowherd commentary on on some of what we're talking about.
There were two other things that came out that I hadn't heard of. These are huge factors. Few teams that actually was interested in him said, well, what do you make of this really bad play? And Shedeur said, maybe I'm not the guy for you. Teams will install mistakes intentionally planted in the install, and they want you to catch them. Shedeur didn't, and when a coach called him out, once again, it didn't sit well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've heard plenty of stories about players who turned out to be great and ended up still getting drafted decently high, having really bad interviews. I mean, Travis Kelce tells a story about how his interview with Coach Reed didn't go well, but so there's got to be more than just the bad interview, right? I mean, that's
I think
not enough.
It's probably the combination of the bad interview and the fact that he's not as good as people think, or as people like us may think he is, because, part of the reason I think he became what he is, obviously, is his dad, et cetera, but it's because of his dad, he was on television.
Right.
We were paying attention to him, and they won some games, right? Although what's his record as a starter? It was 13-12 or 14-12 or something like that. It wasn't like he was great. But my point is, we saw him with our own eyes as a fan base, as opposed to, of the 300 players drafted or whatever, or 150, 70, whatever players drafted, how many have we actually watched with our own eyes? Very, very few outside of the first couple, and certainly not studied. So I'm with Ravi that there's definitely some fire there about his actual ability, not just his bad interviewing, but his actual ability to play football at the professional level. And he would have been drafted. He probably slid a little bit because of the Deion and the bad interviews, et cetera. But the reason why you slide to the 5th round is because people don't think that you can cut it. And they may be wrong, right? But they've been wrong before. Tom Brady obviously being the biggest example. Dak Prescott went in the 4th round. Not every great quarterback was drafted in the 1st round. So it is what it is. I am both inclined to believe that he slid too far because of factors that are probably not relevant to his ability to perform on the field, and he's not as good of a quarterback as those of us who actually got the chance to watch him may have thought.
It would be very difficult for him to have the skills that would be equivalent to the amount of attention that he was going to get by virtue of, not just his dad being the coach, his dad being Deion, but also just, going from Jackson State to Colorado, having been basically one of 3 or 4 subjects of a docuseries already. I mean, the amount of attention on him far outstrips the talent level of the average star recruit, and so I guess maybe it's just that we, as a sports watching world, we sort of created a narrative around him that may have never matched what people were seeing.
Well, I think I think that you guys that you can afford to be non-elite if your mindset is very strong and you're somebody who's coming in like Brady was, who had a chip on his shoulders, and you're gonna be I'm gonna improve every single day. You cannot afford to both not match the tangible measurables and play on the field expectation of teams, and then also come in with a bad attitude about growth. It reminds me of when I was running schools. I used to have people do teachers who would come in, I would have them do a sample lesson. I would give them feedback, and then they would do at least one more, sometimes multiple. And I did not care how good your first sample lesson was. What I was looking for was how you would improve throughout the course of the feedback cycles. And I would take somebody who improved faster than somebody who started off really strong to begin with, because it told me this is a person who could thrive in this environment, is the kind of person who takes feedback, picks it up, gets better, because over the course of a couple of years, that person is going to be way, way better than the person who started off better than the other person. And I think that's probably what these teams are seeing is if this person is going to be a pain in the ass in the film room, if they're not going to be looking for their own mistakes, if they're not going to be hungry, if they're going to come in entitled, and they already aren't even tangibly where we want them to be on our own measurables, then this person is going to slide.
That's fair. Being coachable is a really important skill. And I would imagine being coachable as an NFL quarterback is an immensely important skill. And if you haven't shown, a great talent for being coachable, and your coach through college has been your dad, I can see where teams would be like, I'm hesitant to do this. And then I think you slide a lot more, because at some point it becomes, you have to, if you're going to draft him in a position where you're saying he's either our starter now or he's our starter of the future, you're putting yourself out there. And very quickly, the conventional wisdom on Shedeur shifted from he's a next star to he's a bust. And now it became, by the third round, it became like, to choose him was a risk in and of itself. Like it went, now choosing him was you going out on a limb and making a risky choice. And the whole thing flipped.
And you started to, in addition, not only is it a risky choice, but it draws attention to exactly what you don't want, which is you've created him to be a bigger distraction than he maybe otherwise would have been if he had been a first or second round, because now people are going to really, really care about whether or not he plays and how good he is, et cetera. And I think Bill Simmons talked about this in the podcast over the weekend too. The worst thing for the backup quarterback should be seen and not heard is essentially the vibe, I think, of most NFL professionals and probably most of us as well. Like, it's the court, you don't want to hear from the backup quarterback. And this is exactly the kind of situation where if you draft him to be your backup quarterback, if not to not be your starter, but to be your backup quarterback, you are creating a quarterback controversy from day one, whether you like it or not. And it only got worse as every single round went by. And maybe the Browns got lucky because they have the most fucked up quarterback room in the league.
It's a
so
perfect
it's like
environment.
kind of perfect for him. Yeah.
But I had one thought of this, and I know we'll go to a clip. Is like, I thought it by the fourth round, I was like, the Bills should draft this guy, put him behind Josh Allen, give him some like development behind Josh Allen. There's no controversy there. And then they could trade him for a first or second round pick if he flashes, or multiple first round picks if he comes in and looks amazing. So it's like, it's kind of worth the risk. And everybody has to have a backup quarterback, and fourth round is not a crazy place to do it. You usually pay that person millions of dollars every year. But then I thought about it, and I was like, we went through Stephon Diggs.
Mm-hmm.
We're going through James Cook right now. And I'm like, we don't need another person negotiating through the media. And I was like, it's not worth it. And I think that's what a lot of teams went through, because there are a lot of teams with starting quarterbacks who could have given this guy good development, but just didn't want the trouble.
And it's not like as a trade piece, it's not like baseball where you get a player and you're like, hey, we're not going to be very good this year, but by the All-Star break, he's going to be good and we'll trade him for prospects. Because in baseball, everybody sees that player for the entire first half of the season. If it's a backup quarterback, nobody knows whether you've developed them and whether they're any good unless your quarterback gets hurt. So, okay, with that said, let's look at this clip of his presser here.
If you ain't trying to change the franchise or the culture, don't give me. So you should know history repeats itself over and over and over, and I've done it over and over and over, so it should be no question why an NFL franchise should pick me. You think I'm worried about what critics say or what people got to say? You know who my dad is? They hated on him too.
Yeah, look, I mean, the thing is, there's a world in which that's who the dude is, and he turns out to be that good. I mean, if you're Shedeur Sanders, if you're Deion Sanders' son, is there a world in which you're going to approach things the way other people approach things? Like, I just don't see, like, if your dad, I think first of all, I think it's great that his dad is clearly his hero. I think that's awesome. And I think he's approaching life the way his dad did. It may turn out that the deficit between the gulf between his confidence and his skill set is there. And as a result, it's not the same as it was for Deion. But if it turns out that he's pretty darn good, this is going to be an awesome story. And I'll tell you what, that's what I'm hoping for. I am rooting for him, not out of any like investment in him, just because I think it would be so cool if the whole time he's been like, no, I'm the greatest thing ever, just like my dad was the greatest thing ever. And then he turns out to be the greatest thing ever. So I hope he has a Hall of Fame career in the NFC, because the Chiefs are in the AFC.
The thing is, like, if
I know he's going to an AFC team, but still.
If he does become good, it will be because of this, not in spite of this. Like,
yeah.
I think it will be because of the humbling experience of going late. Then he has to allow it to humble him. It's being like Patrick Schwarzenegger or Robert Downey Jr. Like, if you have a super famous father, a lot of these people go through this period of time where they're like laughed at or whatever. But the question is like, how do you approach it? When I heard that, like, what you want to hear in that press conference, and this is where I think Deion is doing his son a disservice, is what you need to hear is, look, I'm my own man. I love my father. He's done a lot for me, but I need to do this for myself, and I'm ready to do it on my own. I'm going to work hard and show that I earn this. Like the problem is those are very important words, like that you need to both believe them, but like the fact that you can't utter them, like, is a huge red flag. Like,
It's clearly what he should have said. I'm just saying, it would be cool if he makes us all look stupid. I would love that.
And I think about Anthony Edwards. Obviously, I'm a huge NBA fan, so it's the alignment between ability and confidence has to line up. And Anthony Edwards is like the most arrogant. I mean, he's Shedeur Sanders like times 10. But you know what? He's good enough to be that way, and he also does it with a certain joy almost that like kind of gets him off the hook. Like I don't understand it.
Mm-hmm.
My bigger point is like he is one of the 10 best players in the NBA, and he's the most arrogant player in the NBA, and that's fine. But Shedeur Sanders isn't even in the NFL yet.
Right.
And he played at Colorado and was 13-12 as a starter. So has he earned the ability to be that arrogant? The answer is basically no. Like that's what it comes down to. And NFL, I think, also has more conservative front offices than that. They specifically don't like arrogance, or unearned arrogance. But you have to earn arrogance. You have to earn arrogance at that level, certainly, and for that position, certainly. And that kind of press conference to me is just like, I mean, it's bad comm strategy, but it's also like you haven't earned the ability to be that. You were at Colorado, your dad was your coach, and you were a 500 quarterback. Like, if you're Joe Burrow or, at LSU winning national titles, or Will Howard even, who got drafted, I think, in the same round as him, like, at least you won the national championship, like.
Even those people don't talk like that. Like, because people know the history of NFL drafts. Like, even a top, like Cam Ward doesn't talk like that. Like, you're the number one pick. It's like, you just know that there is a graveyard of Ryan Leafs and all these kind of people who've been humbled by the experience of trying to break into the NFL. It is unforgiving.
You know what? We got two more videos to play that delve into the other controversies on this. But one thing that occurs to me is that I'm not sure that it's a matter of him just being like, I'm the greatest football player ever. If you are Shedeur Sanders or Shedeur Sanders, and you've grown up watching your father, one of the things you would probably come to believe, and this is, I think, a good thing, is that there's more than one way for you to become very successful. And it may just be that he's like, look, I'm ready to go be a star quarterback in the NFL. But if that doesn't work out, understand, I'm a Sanders. I'm going to be a star. It's what we do. And so, I think, I don't know. Let's look at this clip of Stephen A. and Marcus Spears going back and forth.
If you think that I'm going to sit here and assume that was strictly an evaluation about his football skills alone that led to him falling out the entire first round without his father having an impact, I don't buy that.
Shedeur Sanders dropped out of the first round, and people want to create this conversation like it has something to do with his attitude or it has something to do with prime. Yes, that can cause you to drop. But if you got crazy talent, bro, some team would have took him in the first round.
Well, that's right. And that also, all that commentary came from, before he had slid out of the second round. And what did he get drafted in? The fifth. Yeah. I mean,
day 3 also, which like it gave us 48 hours, 2 nights to like marinate on it. And, people have brought up issues of race too. Like, can a black man be that arrogant essentially? And is there, would it have been different if this was a white player, whether they're a quarterback or not? It's a fair question, right? And I think it all comes back to the alignment of how good were you, right? How good did you actually show you were versus how demonstrably arrogant you are.
Mhm.
And I do think there's a double standard for Black athletes and
For sure.
women certainly. Like,
Mhm.
a shit talking woman does not get the same kind of grace that a shit talking, in fact, praise that a shit talking man gets. So don't get it twisted. But I think I'm with Marcus Spears here. It had to have had something more to do than just like, God knows, Ravi, you said it, what the off-field issues have been for the players, the 140 players selected before him. I'm sure there were some pretty bad ones.
The guy Green, who I think went to either the Ravens or the Eagles.
Ravens, yeah.
Dude had 2 separate sexual assault allegations right after another. After he had he signed a zero tolerance pledge to, I think, UVA or whoever team he went to, and then he got drafted in the 2nd, 3rd round. And it's like,
I mean,
like
he was a first round. To be fair, I think he was evaluated as a first round talent, and he went in the 2nd round. So it's
he's a perfect Ravens
slid.
player. It was the Ravens. Yeah, it's perfect for the Ravens.
But he slid. But the point is, he slid as far as his talent sort of allowed him to slide. I don't know if that's giving him, what I'm trying to say, giving him maybe too much credit. But Shedeur slid as far as his talent allowed him to slide, which was pretty far. And I'm with you, Jason, though. I want him to be good. I want us to retroactively think that he was justified in being this arrogant and acting this way. But will he ever get the chance to do it? That's the question. Like, 5th round quarterbacks don't often get opportunities to be on the field, let alone.
What would be fun is if it turns out Shedeur Sanders becomes the best defensive back in the history of the NFL.
Well, this reminds me of the other LeBron kid, who apparently is like a pretty decent basketball player, the one with the rec specs. But my final piece on this before we move off is I have a revised hope for this, which is related to your hope, which is I want him to be good, but I want him to be good because he's learned from this and actually humbled himself and learned how to be a professional. That's what I want. And then he could be as arrogant as he wants, but I would love for him in his interviews to talk about how he learned a lot through this experience and dug in and learned to be his own man and watch film and, be a backup for a couple of years and wait his turn and learn the game and learn to work hard and, improve his physicals. That's what I want to see.
Totally disagree. I don't want any of that. I want him to be just like Deion. I want him to be, Deion was like, you know what? I don't care. I'm going to go play baseball sometimes and I'm not going to make it to practice. And I'm not going to study
the Deion Barry Rice dynamic, if you ever look into it, is really funny because Barry Rice is what I just described. Deion is what you just described.
I want him to be like that. I want him to be, I don't want this, but this is like what I'm saying. I hope this would be so cool if he doesn't become, more humble. And if he continues to be like, I might look at the plays, I might learn them. I don't know. But it turns out he's just so freakishly good. I mean, look, I know this is unlikely, but wouldn't it be fun if he's just so freakishly good, nobody can touch him?
He by all accounts has none of the elite athleticism that his father had, which allowed him to be so arrogant.
He's a quarterback. Like you can return kicks and be, a super athlete as a two-way player, mostly as a corner when you just have freakish athletic ability. It is harder to do that as a quarterback. That said, wouldn't that be fun? All right, before we go, before we leave this, we got to talk about the fact that Trump, of course, had to insert himself into this. He didn't hesitate. He took to Truth Social to blast the teams for not drafting Shedeur, and then Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, gave Trump credit for the draft. Let's look at this video.
One more. After the president's Truth Social post, the Browns finally took Shedeur Sanders. Does the president think he deserves credit for Sanders getting picked? And does he think going to the Browns is better than being undrafted?
Hey, all I will say is the president put out a statement, and a few rounds later he was drafted. So I think the facts speak for themselves on that one.
It's funny. A few rounds later, I don't think you followed the draft. That's okay. Any question, by the way, that starts out with something that's not terrible.
Credit.
Yeah, does he think he deserves credit? Like, I mean, I think we know.
Also, the Cleveland Browns absolutely catching a stray there. A deserved stray. Like, is it better to go to the Browns or be undrafted? Like, wow. The White House press room.
The NFL needs to make a decision right now. I don't know who's supposed to be on Hard Knocks this year, but switch it to the Browns right now. I want to see the quarterback battle between the two of these guys. I think it would be great. Adisu, you froze for a moment in just a great posture. That was great.
Yeah, sorry. Did you say the Brown? You said the Brown should be.
Yeah, that's what I want. I want it to be the Browns.
1,000,000%.
Yeah, it'd be just great television, man.